Welcome to NeuroMovement Revolution with Anat Baniel, where you will discover breakthrough possibilities for your life through the brain's power to change. We're so happy that you can join us in making the impossible possible.
And now we're going to move on to episode 30.
Wow, congratulations to us. Okay, so can you spotlight Jordy while I talk?
I can spotlight Jordy, yes.
So before I read, okay, I will read first and then I'll say how I met Jordy, how we met Jordy, Neil and I. So Geordie Trifa is a Canadian producer, director, and director of photography of Chinese and Romanian descent. Growing up in an immigrant household, he was connected to his homeland through his father's strong oral storytelling tradition. Jordy's feature documentary, A Life Unbound, was released in 2018. It follows the work of Anat Baniel, creator of Anat Baniel Method NeuroMovement. The film has found a global following, screening in over 60 cities globally, and is a finalist in the 2020 Raw Science Film Festival in Los Angeles. Jordy has worked in the film and television industry for nearly a decade, spending 2 years with Canadian television. His other works include 2 bottles of, I can't know if I said correctly, Rakija and Black Rock, both produced in 2019. Jordy has produced and directed countless commercials and short films over the last decade, shooting on nearly every continent on the globe. So welcome, 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 Jordy.
Hi, Anat.
Hi. You're just so cool. You have that cool vibe. So Neil and I met Jordy. It was like 2.5 years ago now, right? Or 3 years, something like that. When
You know what? I think it was probably 3 years ago, maybe to the month. Pretty close, almost exactly. You were
right. I was in Saskatoon
in the summer.
Yeah, 3 years. And I was doing a couple grand rounds in the hospital, and I was teaching. I taught a workshop, for the general public, and Ali, that is now already a teacher of the method, but she organized it. And when I gently and delicately asked me whether I would mind if a childhood friend of hers, who is a film maker, would come and do a little bit of filming to, if I recall correctly, maybe to do a YouTube or something. And I said, sure, I don't care. And Jordy, with his cool vibe, showed up and was wonderful. And I did it in a way that I didn't even feel like you were there. It was really easy. And then did an interview with me and with Neil. And I actually didn't think about it anymore. And a few months later, probably half a year later, we get a communication from Jordy saying that he's produced this half-hour film documentary about the work. And I was like, oh, really? Great. And then you were talking to this TV station that wanted scientists to come on. So I got some of my scientists, friends, collaborators, Dr. Merzenich, Martha Herbert, Rick Hansen, Jill Bolte Taylor, and Jordy just flew around and interviewed them and so on. And here we are. We have this wonderful, inspiring, amazing film. And what so got me to be a huge, I feel like he's a good friend and a big fan of Jordy, is how much he gets it. I don't have to tell him to move from fixing to connecting. If I ever need Jordy to fix anything, I have to send him like 400 texts to get him to do it. But if it's about connecting, he's always there. So Jordy, we're going to talk tonight in the interview. We have a half-hour interview this evening. We're going to talk about the making of the film. And, you know, and for those of you who are not aware of it, Jordy, we talked about it, and he said, how about we do a showing on the internet again of the film? And it was his idea to open it for 6 days, you know, 24/6, not 24/7, but 24/6. And for the price of $5, which is really not very much, pretty much for anyone. And if ever anyone has, you know, contacts us from Africa or somewhere and they don't have the money, we of course will give people a way to get in without paying, but otherwise $5 to help cover the costs of the film, because Jordy took it on. He paid for everything. It was just like remarkable. So so I would say the film was done out of love and out of and we'll talk about what got you to want to do it and so on tonight. But Jordy, tell us a little bit, because I know some of it, and then anything else you want, and we'll leave a little time for Q&A. But tell us about either the project you're doing for the Canadian broadcasting channel, or maybe a little bit. Oh, and I want you to tell the story about how your daughter learned to read. Talk about the essentials, intentionally or unintentionally, I'm not sure, you'll have to tell me, applied with the most fantastic, marvelous, and I think somewhat predictable outcome. For me, predictable. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so you know, spending the last few years getting to know Anat, now I find ways to work her into all kinds of different projects. So we you know, I have a new film coming out here in the fall. It's called Pandemic Elementary with CBC, which is the main national broadcaster here in Canada. And essentially it's the story of, you know, my family deciding to homeschool or actually trying something called unschooling, you know, during the pandemic. And, you know, so I thought that it would be amazing to bring Anat on and get some kind of insight in kind of the best ways for parents to like approach education at home. And, you know, but the film really follows kind of my story, and Anat's, you know, one of the people that I reach out to for advice, you know, in the film. And that really has been our journey. You know, my children went to a Waldorf school here in BC, in coastal BC. And, you know, and then when everything happened, we decided to totally pull our kids out of school, and it basically, as long as this pandemic is still happening, we're not going to be sending our children back to school. So we're on this journey, you know, as it is right now. You know, but in terms of the essentials, and this was something that this happened last year, it was kind of interesting. In Waldorf education, they, you know, when they first are teaching children to read, they use a lot of like art-based stuff, you know, so they'll take the letter A and they'll tell a story around it, and then day 2 they like draw pictures of A, and then they, you know, and they do all these kinds of things, but they don't actually teach the practical elements of learning. And then, you know, being a film family, we travel around all over the world, and that was kind of part of the gig. And so we ended up in a very remote community, a very small island way up near Alaska. Small remote indigenous community. And so we were out there for a few weeks, and my daughters got the chance to go to school at this place. And so they were doing more of the standard kind of teaching around learning, or around reading, and using things like phonetics and this kind of stuff. And my daughter had done none of that, and all she had done was just this, just like kind of these drawing things. And then basically after the first day of her now starting to do the phonetics at this school, you know, her teacher noticed that within one day she's at the beginning of the day, she didn't really, you know, she couldn't really read. And by the end of the day, she was the best reader in the class. And so she went to the principal and said, like, I don't know, like, what she was learning before or what's going on, but there's something kind of wrong here. Like, this girl couldn't read at the beginning of the day, and in one day now she's like the best reader in our class. And for me, when I heard that and the principal had told me that had happened, I mean, the thing that clicked for me was was thinking about the essentials and and thinking about this thing with differentiation in the brain and having these two different kind of ways of approaching learning, but when they came together, seemingly this thing happened. And Anat, you probably have more to say about it than I, to clarify what maybe all happened or how that all works. But that was in my, limited understanding. I saw the essentials at work right there.
First of all, this is the second or third time I hear this story, and you can tell it to me immediately again now, and I would just be moved and would listen to it with full interest. Because it's not like a fact. It's like I lived through the story, and it's just so delightful, and I really feel it's nourishing. It has so much to it. So the very first thing that I want to say about it is that the essentials are not, even though the essentials from fixing to connecting, maybe one day I'll rearrange and just do fixing to connecting, the first essential, but those total 10 things, they're not, they are my brand, right? They're the brand of the work. They define the work, but they're not exclusive to the work. They're not the work. They're how we are built. So whether it's applied through, through Waldorf or another approach or another set of ways, it will be as effective. I remember, and I want to give here what I would consider not necessarily a positive thing, because when my daughter was small, I looked for a school for her. And I knew that she will need she will need the school. She was emotionally so attuned when I put her at preschool, and it was considered the most open-ended, loving preschool. And one day she was upset, and she wanted me, and they took a while to call me to come pick her up. And she just cried. She wouldn't stop crying. She just wanted me. She knew what she wanted, and she wanted me. And then when I picked her up, she calmed down, and whatever I asked her, and she said, so there were 3 teachers, and she said, one teacher and then the other teacher, they were mad at me. They were angry. And when I walked and saw the teachers, they never yelled at her or anything, but she picked it up. That's how sensitive she was. So I tested one of the Montessori schools, and I went to the classroom she would have gone into, and I wasn't going to put her in there, because what I realized, the philosophy behind Montessori and the philosophy behind Waldorf, there's so much in it that and I sent a lot of the kids I work with that they will go to a Montessori school, so that they will not be special needs because they're not exactly like the other kids, but that there'll be freedom for them to arrive in different paths to the outcomes. But the school that I looked in my area, they were so compulsive and so rigid about doing it the right way, which is not being rigid. And I went like, whoa, I'm not going to put her here. It was like a religion, like a harsh religion. So it's really the underlying real fundamentals that make the difference. And then there are many ways to express it. And that's also where there's so much, hope, because it's when we are alive, and whichever age we are, when we are giving certain conditions, we wake up, our brain wakes up and does the process of learning and optimizing itself. The brain will always choose the thing that works the easiest and the safest. So maybe we have anybody who wants to ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
One thing I was just going to say quick, though, what you're saying, part of what you were talking about, this thing with these schools about the the rigidity of not being rigid, you know.
Yes.
I mean, we actually found that the impact overall in our few years of the schools was actually negative on our kids overall, and the way that they were becoming opening to learning. So as we've moved to this unschooling and kind of stepping out of the traditional education system and doing it from home, like, you know, I mean, I feel like for the first time in a few years, I really get to like see my daughters be the true essence of who they are, and they're starting to open up again, and we haven't seen that in a while. So it's we've seen this schooling from home really kind of start to deprogram some of that.
You know, the one thing that I think is really important, and you know, I have certain images. You know, I remember the years that the open school in Israel, when I was still living in Israel, was very, very popular, and they had their own compulsion about being open. You know, and there were some really not good things that resulted. You know, I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm heading somewhere about that, because most parents will not be able to homeschool. So it's very important, and I really, for me, it's just very doable, both in terms of influencing the way the school is, and also how you prepare the child to be in the school the way the school is. To some extent, not thinking of essentials or anything, my father did it for me. I don't know if I think I left it out of the book, Kids Beyond Limits, but I don't remember all of what went into the book. But I remember I was a huge daydreamer. And talk about a rigid school. I mean, it was not good, you know, but daydreaming was my saving grace for me experientially. And I didn't know people knew I was daydreaming, because it was all private internally, right? But I was intentional. In first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, I'd go sit down, start daydreaming. And I loved it, because I had time to daydream, you know, a lot of time to daydream every day. But I didn't realize I was a problem, because I wasn't learning some of what I was supposed to learn, and I wasn't doing homework and so on. So my father was driving me to school one morning, and he says to me, Anat, do you like to daydream? And I was so surprised he knew. I thought this was like a big secret, right? Nobody knew what I was doing. And I said, yeah. He said, do you like to daydream in school? I said, yeah. So he asked me, do you like to daydream? Do you daydream some of the time? Or how much do you daydream? And I said, all the time. I was very clear. He said, do you mind daydreaming half of the time and listening to the teacher half of the time? And I said, no, I don't want to listen to the teacher. I just want to daydream. He said, okay. And that was it. Then eventually they moved me to another school. But you know, so that wasn't ideal. But this is story kind of like, it's not quite right for it, but it represents that there's a way for the home and the parents, with their approach and with their attitude, and with going in and supporting the teachers, you know, not fighting them, not making them wrong, but supporting them. And some teachers become very open to it, others get more defensive, you know, you have all kinds of stuff. But we find, like in the school in Lloydminster, you know, some teachers was like fish to water. Others, it's kind of like, this woman with this weird accent, what is she telling me? You know, what does she want me to do? You were there filming it, but you know, they take their own time, because they were raised also a certain way and so on. So very important to discuss, and I would like to discuss it. Maybe you can even come on another podcast, how to do, when kids go to school, how to support what you call their essence, or their you know, I call it to not be pushed to put a false self on, you know, as quickly as, or at all, you know, be freed from the false self. So Neil, is there anybody asking a question or wanting to say something?
Actually, I think people are just enjoying the back and forth conversation between the two of you. I mean, it's just fantastic. You're just both such creative, talented people. And obviously, if there are questions, I will bring them up, but you carry on.
Any comments?
not specifically related to Geordie and your conversation. Okay, we have one from Kavita. When you're homeschooling, how is the social interaction with other kids addressed?
Okay. So that's going to be one of a full-time, a full session where we have a social side of things. But Jordy, I mean, you have built-in social system because you have 3 kids, but can you talk to that a little bit, Jordy?
Yeah, well, I mean, during the pandemic, you know, the kids have been video chatting with their friends quite a bit. And so, I mean, that's one thing that's kind of gone on. So they have a bit of a social system kind of built in there. You know, as well as the community that we live in too, it's very much like a neighborhood community where a lot of the kids are, you know, there's kids of their age. So they, you know, they've built relationships with, you know, a lot of kids just down the street kind of thing. So that's kind of how, you know, in the immediate, we've, you know, kind of been addressing it. But, you know, the pandemic is a bit of a strange time. But, you know, I think for a lot of other things, like we're going to be, you know, whether that's like, you know, different sports or, you know, like gymnastics. My daughter was in like a ninja training. So she was doing, which is like it was a mix of martial arts and stunt training.
Excuse me, Jordy, was that online or in person?
Well, these things were in person. So this was before the pandemic hit. So now that the pandemic's, you know, hit, it's changed those things a bit. But yeah, but like I said, I mean, you know, in the immediacy of the pandemic, it was a lot of video chatting and things that were going on. And like, you know, my daughters, I guess, because we've made this transition just recently, like they still kind of have their friend groups, whether that's in the neighborhood or kids that they were going to school with. So, you know, but it'll be something that we're definitely navigating. You know, and I think part of it too, like as a family, we're just so used to being on the road that my kids have found ways to, you know, there's various different ways that they kind of get those social interactions just because we do travel a lot just for
interesting. So give me an idea of the various ways that, because the kids that do move a lot are in a sense socially isolated because they come to a place where they don't know other kids. So you said they stay in contact with their existing friends, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's one thing, right? I think when we think about you know, because of this new world we're living in, where we're able to stay connected so much more easy, you know. Like my daughter's best friend, like they actually moved, but like because of you know, video chatting and stuff. I mean, you know, they hang out with each other on video chat for like a few hours every day kind of thing. You know.
So let me tell you, given, of course, the whole other, which will be another podcast, the devices, right? Mm-hmm. The overuse of devices. Do you have any concern, or do you limit them at all on that, or what do you do?
Well, what we've been doing is we do tech days and then we do tech free days. So we have days where, you know, on tech days they're, you know, they can use tech for the day. We don't have a limit on what that is, but then we have days that are tech free where nobody gets to use any. So, and we've found that, you know, the kids actually like respond fairly well for it. They kind of it's a lot easier for them to understand. I think especially at their age, like it's kind of hard, you know, they don't really get when they say, oh, well, you know, 2 hours a day. They don't really fully understand quite yet, like, well, what exactly 2 hours is or how that feels. You know, my daughters are 8, 6, and you know, 1.5. So for the 8 and 6-year-old, it's a lot easier for them. Like, okay, today I get to be on screens, and like tomorrow I don't.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea. I didn't think of that. I will steal it from you. Okay.
We have a question from Gabby Ilanetsky. Jordy, did you ever lose your patience with your kids while homeschooling them? How do you manage yourself and your own internal state to bring your best self in connecting with your children?
Just one second. Ro, it's in the car in the console. Sorry, I'm just making sure my laptop doesn't die here. Yeah, losing patience. You know, I think it's been a really interesting process because it's kind of, you know, part of what we were wanting to, you know, do with this is in making the choice to homeschool is like really, you know, meeting our children where they're at. So I've had to learn how to kind of temper my expectations and what I put on them. So it's been more of an internal process and work in terms of like, you know, it's not starting to not think about education as the thing that I think that they need to do, but thinking about education as like, how can I turn the world around me and the things they're already into educational experiences? And, you know, what we found is, you know, back kind of to the reading, is that my oldest daughter, my oldest daughter, her reading took a massive step where now she's actually like, she's reading the Harry Potter novels now. But that happened because there's a video game that she really loved to play, but to play it, she needed to be able to read. So that was like a huge lesson. So she really took her reading to the next level because of a video game, because there was a real desire and you know, there was a real desire and a real fire and interest in her, you know, or what you would say, like the learning switch was really on because she's found something that she was really, really excited about. But for her to be really excited about it, you know, once she was really excited about it and she was all there. And so she just on her own accord taught herself to read. And when we noticed her reading got so good, then we started introducing novels. Well, hey, like, we know you really love Harry Potter. Like, what if we bought you some books? And she says, okay, sure. You know, and then we bought her books. And so at nighttime, you know, she'll like read her Harry Potter book. And then she's really excited about the pages. Yeah. And really excited about the, you know, the pages she's reading and stuff, you know, but I'll be honest is that it took us a while to kind of get there, because for us, we're also, you know, with the screen time, we're navigating like all these things out in society, what's good, what's bad, you know, all this kind of stuff. And you're dealing with all those things that come up as a parent. So, you know, I think we definitely have moments of frustration, you know, but we're learning as we're going through it. But we're seeing, you know, I think part of the homeschooling thing is it kind of teaches you to be creative, you know, and also teaches you to like kind of, you know, leave all your old inhibitions at the door and recognize that, you know, there's all these new tools around us that can really help us. And sometimes they're kind of unexpected. And the video game thing is an example of that.
There we go. Okay. So Jordy, I'm so happy to have you, you know, on this podcast, and we're going to have basically another half hour, the two of us, and this evening. So I'd like to make the announcement again, A Life Unbound for $5. We sent people an email. If you didn't get an email, you're not on our email list, or you didn't get the email, Neil, where can they find on Facebook? They can find you're going to post.
There's an event on on our Facebook page. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to find it.
Or come on our website. I think there is the A Life Unbound page.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a button on our website too.
And the website is anatbanielmethod.com. And then this evening we have a half-hour interview, and it can go longer, a little longer. It doesn't have to just be half hour, with Jordy. And at 6 California time, Pacific daytime. Tomorrow, the interview is at 11 in the morning with Dr. Rick Hansen. You know, he wrote the book Buddha's Brain and the Hardwiring Happiness. Many, you know, he's one. I mean, all of them are wonderful. All the people I'm going to interview. The following day, Thursday, I have 2 interviews because of scheduling needs of the interviewees. So at 11 a.m., I have Dr. Michael Merzenich for an hour. And he scheduled himself for an hour, so I'm not going to debate that. And in the evening, I'm with Martha Herbert, Dr. Martha Herbert. And it's going to be delightful. I ask everybody, and you, Jordy, if you saw it and you can send me something, I ask people to send me questions that they want me to ask them about. And Martha already did it, and she has fantastic questions. And then the following day, it's Jill Bolte Taylor at 11 in the morning, Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. That's, if you don't know her, she's the woman who has the TED Talk, My Stroke of Insight, that has had the, many millions of views. And then Saturday at 6 in the evening, we have a person I haven't interviewed, and I think, Jordy, you really probably would want to listen to all of them, but it's Dr. Christina Bethel. And Christina has done for the last 30 plus years remarkable work, and her work created what's now is government census. The information we have about how many kids have what conditions, and because of what she's created, policies in terms of supporting families and children with special needs have occurred. And she's doing a lot of incredibly important things, and she's been looking for quite a while now into the relationship between the mother's experiences during pregnancy and how it affects the child by the time they're born. And then she looks at traumatizing the mom, and then the traumatizing of children, and how to recover. Dr. Merzenich is very involved in it now too. So I'm going to focus some of the questions about what is considered trauma, because I have my ideas of some of the interventions that we do with the children and some of the way we school children, trying to help them and trying to get them to be successful and happy, that can be actually traumatizing, and it has real consequences all the way to the actual structures of the brain, or what's happening to the structures of the brain. So that will be Christina Bethel. I know her Neil and I know her now for, I don't know, probably 12 years or longer. I don't know, however long it's been. And she's a huge fan of NeuroMovement, and she is an unbelievable wealth of knowledge, and she's working on changing policy, continuously working on policy in Washington, even today when there isn't that much interest in the current government and things like that. So and you get on our website, there is the schedule that I just named. I hope, and let other people know. I mean, it's really a star-studded interviews and a wonderful, wonderful film, an inspiring one. Yes, Neil, you're trying to say something.
I was just going to say that even though these interviews are happening live this week, they will remain available for, forever, as podcasts. So don't feel that if you're listening to this podcast in the future that you've missed the opportunity to hear them. They will still be there.
Yeah, but the one thing they will miss is that each one of those will open it for Q&A.
Absolutely. This week is definitely a great time to listen to them, because you'll be able to contribute in real time. Yeah.
Get access to these people directly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy to have, and so many of you stayed past the 9 minutes past the formal ending time. And Jordy, again, just love having you and bringing you to more directly to our community. And with the forever deep gratitude for the film and for everything else. And I love being on your new program and any program, anytime. Yes.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure there will be others. So don't.
Yeah, I mean, once we do this,
we have many more years of.
The research on stroke. When we land again, we can do it live. I want it documented. It's going to be everything. It's going to be. It will revolutionize rehabilitation from the core. And then Neil, aside from everything else, is an amazing practitioner. He does fabulous work on the coaching program. He's a fantastic trainer in the training program. He's a great musician. He's a wonderful friend. And he does all the tech for me, or there would have never been anything. I would just be hidden in a...
And I'm not a tech guy. Hence, Thank you for your patience. And I do want to say there've been a lot of comments coming in the chat, and I will make sure that Jordy and Anat get to see all of those. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't see them yet,
Oh, I can't see them yet.
but I will make sure you get them
see it.
forwarded to you.
So Millie said, so good to see. Oh, Millie, my goodness. And Claudia, it was better before. What was better?
That was the sound when I asked you to alter your sound.
Yeah. And then Linda, I agree, her sound was perfect before. You spoiled the sound.
See, you're tech genius here. Okay.
No, you're doing great. Oh, Debbie Zelensky. Oh, that's the information. Yeah. I thought maybe Debbie was she's probably working. Anyway, love you guys. Stay safe and be well, and be with you soon, maybe even this evening. Who knows?
Thank you for joining us on NeuroMovement Revolution with Anat Baniel. You will find all of our podcasts and additional resources on our website at www.anatbanielmethod.com. You can also subscribe to this podcast for free on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and TuneIn. We look forward to seeing you online for our next NeuroMovement Revolution.